Welcome to Shoulda Films, the podcast about movies that have been adapted from books. And I am joined here on the wrong side of the tracks, as it were, by returning champion Kalen Hertz. Kalen, welcome back.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Also, wrong side of the tracks is really funny because I do live in North Hollywood and I live right by where in Clueless, when she gets lost and she's crying at Circus Liquor and says, I'm on the wrong side of the tracks. I live very close to that. So.
Oh, yeah. The Circus Liquor one, actually, that's like a perfectly fine liquor store. I've bought many a six pack there. The sign's in a little disrepair these days. Last I saw it, like it's missing a lot of segments, so it doesn't quite have the splendor that it used to. Yeah. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Specific LA things. We're here to talk about the 1983 I guess you could call it a cult classic, or maybe just a regular classic film, The Outsiders, directed by Francis Ford Coppola of Godfather fame, and starring a bunch of dang hunks, you know, kind of in their debuts, or at least early in their career. We've got Rob Lowe, Matt Dillon, Emilio Estevez, Tom Cruise, Patrick Swayze, Diane Lane. Like the cast is really incredible. So I had not seen this film until this assignment. I gave it to myself until this. And you had not seen this film until this as well, right?
Yes, but I'm just now realizing. Did you watch the like extended cut one or not?
No. Did you?
I did. I watched the one. It's only it has like I think 30 extra minutes.
Oh,
or
wow.
something.
Okay, this is wow. Yeah.
I literally just realized. I was like, because when I went to watch it, there were two, and I was like, what's the difference? And there's one that's just like has a few scenes that were originally taken out. So I watched that one. Yeah, I don't know like what scenes though. Like it didn't. Okay. It's not like it was like bonus scene here. Like it just
right. Yeah.
So I don't. We might find out.
Yeah. And this is something I was going to get into a little bit later, is that basically the studio made the director cut about 30 minutes of the film out to get it down to like a very, very lean, some could say too short, 91 minutes. And later in, I think it was 2005, his granddaughter was reading the book in school and was like, oh, I'm excited to watch the movie. And he was like, she's going to watch it and she's going to be upset because there's scenes missing. Let me go back and add all the scenes in. And so he made the like complete version. That's really exciting though, that you watched the full version. And I watched the kind of the theatrical version. Yeah. But what were your kind of overall thoughts on this movie?
I just loved it. Like I watched it with my roommate who had seen it when she was like, she read the book like back in school and they watched the movie. I never did. So it was like fully my first time seeing it. And I loved it. I thought it definitely made me tear up. And I think I would have fully cried if I did see the musical. So I knew the story, but if it was my first time, I think I would have fully cried. Casting was great. I've talked to Jonathan about this, I think in our like free time, but I can't tell if an actor is good or not. I'm just very gullible and I'm just like, great. But like, I did feel in this movie, I was like, no, they're good, right? Like, I don't know. I felt like they were good.
Well, this is going to bring us to my thoughts. I did not enjoy this movie.
Wait, what?
I did not like this movie. And I was really shocked.
I was not expecting this.
I wasn't expecting this either. I went into this being like, oh, I'm going to love this. I like most of these actors. I like this director. He's made some kooky films, but he hits more often than he misses. And
I'm in shock.
What it comes down to for me is some of the performances. Like I thought some of the performances were very good. I thought Patrick Swayze as Daryl Derry was very good. I thought Diane Lane was very good as Cherry, but I thought the guy playing Ponyboy, C. Thomas Howell, I don't know what it was. I just didn't like connect with him, and I think that this story kind of lives and dies by its performances. But one of my other kind of critiques of it is that like unlike the book, the kind of inciting incident of the story happens very soon. So if you haven't seen the movie, one, I don't know why you're watching this, but two, there's spoilers ahead. So the thing that kicks off the action of the movie is that Ponyboy and Johnny get jumped by the rival gang, the Socs, and Johnny ends up killing one of the Socs. So in the movie, that happens like pretty soon, at least the version that I watched, because one of my issues was that like we jump right into that before we really get a time to like feel what it's like to hang out with the Greasers and kind of see their dynamic and see the brothers dynamic. So I'm curious, with the extended version, was there more time given to that?
I do think that there was some more time. I still think it happened like kind of early, but I do specifically, because I also, when I decided to watch that one of the like descriptors of the movie was like some of the added scenes are more scenes with the brothers. So I do think that there probably was a little more time. But also I will say, like, my one critique of the movie was, and I don't have the book to compare it to, so I also am very curious, like, with you. But even in the musical, I felt like the movie, like, lacked the depth of the relationships. Like, I felt like there was just not, like, I didn't feel for them as much in the movie because I felt like the setup wasn't there. So I think I do agree with that. I get that, but I still really liked it. I'm really shocked.
And it's like one of those things where people really do love this movie, and I think that there is a lot to love here about it. I think part of it is because I just read the book so recently. And this movie is a very, very faithful adaptation. There's things that are in the book that aren't in the movie, but there's very few things that are in the movie that aren't in the book. And so I think that part of what I didn't like was that I think what makes the book work is that the strength of the subjectivity of the narration, because it's being told by this 14-year-old boy, and it's like in the voice of a 14-year-old boy. And so you are seeing the world through the lens of this child, you know? And so he's describing things in a very childish way. And the things that are the deeper nuances are there, but he's not necessarily realizing them. And I think that when it comes to film, you know, there is a level of objectivity that film brings, because it's like, if I show, you know, a close up of Soda Pop, that's just what he looks like. You know, there's no interpretation of like, oh, this is how I imagine Soda Pop. It's just like, oh, it's Rob Lowe. Yeah. And so I feel like the film, it's like it was still, the story was still told in this kind of childish way that like felt at odds with like what film brings to it. Like, I don't know, I'm struggling to articulate it, but
no, I think I get what you're saying.
I did, what I wanted more of specifically was the Ponyboy and Derry relationship, him and his oldest brother, because that felt underdeveloped, at least in this cut of the movie that I saw. And that was the part of the book that like struck me the most, and was the part of the movie. There was a scene in the movie, regardless of how I felt about it overall, I did tear up. And
what part?
That was when the three brothers all reunite, like in the hospital after the fire, and they all come together, and it's just like, it's so good.
I just saw a TikTok that was about that specific part of the movie, and it was saying how that's like the moment that Ponyboy was able to realize that like Derry wasn't just like being controlling, he was just scared.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, that's like, that hits.
And that's the thing, like with this book, I'm you know, I wish that I had read it when I was Ponyboy's age.
Yeah.
Because I think that me reading it now, I kind of automatically side with Derry and see where he's coming from, and like can see that like, oh, you're not handling certain situations well, but that's because one, you're still basically a child, and two, like you have this insane amount of responsibility that you are trying to live up to. like I get why a studio would be like, you need to cut that. But I
Right.
think it's really important that you get to
Mhm.
spend time with these characters and just kind of understand how they are a family.
Yeah.
Like that. And I think that's why this story resonates so much, is that it's these kids who are all kind of coming from home situations that, shall we say, are less than ideal,
Mhm.
and have found each other and have like, it's the found family like trope,
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
but I mean the amount of talent that is in this movie is crazy. It was Tom Cruise specifically, I thought did such a good job of playing an annoying guy.
Mhm. Yeah, sorry,
Also
my cat in the background.
shout out to your cat in the background. What's your cat's name?
Jax.
Jax.
Yes, and he'll probably be
Jax.
jumping around for all of
Look,
this, so
we love a cameo.
yeah, he's being
Did
bad.
Oh, he's like, pay attention to me. Did Jax watch the movie? Was he present?
He actually was present, and he was
Okay.
during, and we always like say that Jax is a gay man, like I know he is, and I think he was really enjoying the visuals for sure. But I was also like, the whole time I was like, I wish I watched this in high school, because now I'm also kind of like, I think he's 17 in this.
It's like some of the actors were teenagers at the time, and some of them weren't. Like the guy who played Johnny, Ralph Macchio, was 20.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. I looked that up actually, because me and like my roommate were watching together, and we were confused about the ages of Johnny Cade and Ponyboy, because I know Ponyboy was supposed to be younger, but for some reason he actually looked older. So then when we looked up the actor Johnny Cade's age, we were shocked that he was 20. He looks like a baby, kind of like.
Yeah, I mean, he's famous for being youthful. Like his probably most famous role is the Karate Kid, and that was a couple years after this. But he's like still playing a teenager, and he's in his mid 20s.
Yeah.
Patrick Swayze was 29 playing a 20-year-old, which I can kind of see. Like he looks a lot older than Derry is like described in the book.
I also never realized how handsome he was. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I never thought about him before.
He was such a handsome guy, and he had such control over his body. Like you can just tell he's a dancer.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. There was a moment where he like flipped over the fence. Was that a cutout scene, or was that in it?
No, that's in it.
Okay.
And so both him and Tom Cruise do like flips, and it's actually them. It's not stunt doubles.
I remember watching that being like, whoa, like, are we not going to talk about that? How did he just do that?
Yeah.
Like how
and
random.
That's in the book too. Like they like wrote it into the book that when they're getting ready for the Rumble, like they run out the porch and like do like a flip.
Yeah.
Which
they're parkour masters.
I gotta say, if I could do that, especially at this age, but like back then, I would not stop doing it. It would be
doing it all the time.
It would be such a part of my personality. Like anytime I would be with a group of let's say 3 or more people, like I'd be pulling that out. And so the fact that they just like leave it until deep in the movie feels a little inaccurate to what I know about teenage boys.
Yeah, they would have been doing that.
They would have been doing that a lot more. A lot more.
That's so funny. I love that.
It's such a faithful adaptation in a lot of ways. And I wonder if maybe because some of the things didn't match how I imagined things, I wonder if maybe that's part like a contributing factor to, and that's always the danger with adaptation, right? Especially when it's something you really enjoy is the risk of someone interpreting something differently. But S.E. Hinton, the author, was very involved in this production. And she actually has a cameo. She plays one of the nurses at the end. She's the nurse in Dallas's room, who like Dallas kind of has like a little bit of a spat with, and then she storms off. That's funny. That's S.E. Hinton.
Wow, I didn't realize that she was alive. That maybe is crazy, but in my head, this is like such an old, I actually don't even know when this was written. So like, but in my head, it's so old that I was like, she's not around.
No. So one, she is still alive today. And the book was written in 1967. And so it was published in 1967. She was like 17 when it was published. So she was born in like 1950 or something like that. So yeah, but she was very involved on the set. There's all sorts of stories of her kind of being like kind of almost like the mother to all these rowdy boys who evidently like plagued the hotel they were staying at because they shot this in like on location in Oklahoma. And there was a story of Tom Cruise years later meeting someone who worked at that hotel during that production, and the first thing he said was, "I'm sorry." Like,
at least he apologized. He realized.
He probably was like, "Oh, okay, I know that there's a PR nightmare here. I need to head this off." But I'm curious how this movie compared to the stage musical that you saw not too long ago.
I have lots of thoughts on that. I literally wrote actually in my little notes here, like I made a little graph, movie versus musical, and like specific differences that I noticed. That some I think I maybe brought up in the little voice note that I sent you.
Yes. And for those, if you haven't for some reason listened to the episode about the book, Kaylin sent in a voicemail with her thoughts kind of about the musical, but this is a chance to dive deeper.
Yes. Okay. So, I mean, I think the biggest difference as far as like storyline goes, which I think is also different from the book, is in the movie, Dallas is kind like, I feel like it's still like kind of suicide by cops. Like he was clearly like half and half. I don't know. Cause it's like he was looking for trouble, but also cops probably shouldn't be shooting someone like that. But so like that's how he dies in the movie. In the musical, after Johnny Cade's death, Dallas kind of has a similar like spiral how he does in the movie, and he goes and stands in front of a moving train. So it's like really rough. And it's like the song that he's singing, and this is I think what the biggest difference for me with obviously with the musical and the movie is like the music, obviously, but I think that's why like I also felt like more connection and depth in the characters in the musical than the book or than the movie, because I was thinking about it. I was like, I don't know why, because like most of the music is like based on conversations they have in the movie and like it's the same things, but there actually is more. Specifically with Dallas, I felt way more connected to and like more sympathetic for in the musical. And I think it's because like in the movie, obviously you can tell that he's like, you know, troubled and stuff, but he does have to be this like tough exterior, and like in a movie you're not really getting an inner monologue. And in the musical, like the song that he sings right before he steps on the train is called Little Brother, and it's just saying like, little brother, sorry I failed you, I couldn't save you, like really showing his like grief and like upset over like failing these like people that he cared a lot about, and just the fact that his life is like the way it is. And I don't know, you just get to like a peek inside of these people's brains more in the musical because they have these songs that are like ballads that are basically inner monologue. That like really hit. But yeah, that scene in the, oh my gosh, I was like a blubbering mess, like literally like like crying out loud, like had to like really try to focus on not like being loud like in this musical, like
in the theater.
Yes, like hardest I've cried at a musical maybe ever, or maybe since like the first time I saw Hadestown, but I think I cried harder. Like and then like he says a line in the musical Ponyboy afterwards when he's like talking about Dallas, and he says like that he likes to think that parts of him made it back on the train all the way to New York. And I'm like, that's so dark, because it's like kind of gross to think about, I guess. But then it's like, damn, like, it's like, I don't know.
There's a
so
poetic,
that part just hurt.
Nature. Yeah. How did they do the train?
Yeah, so it's literally like at the end of the, and I want you to like just go listen to that song honestly after this, because like it's like hard to explain. It's okay, you should. All the music is really great, honestly. And if you want an illegal recording of the whole musical, I could get that for you.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't record it. I didn't record it, but I did find one.
Yep. Interesting.
But there is one out there.
Your friend recorded it.
Right. Exactly.
Is it not
But
is it like not available on streaming music service? Interesting.
no.
Okay.
Oh, well,
Okay.
no. Yes, you can listen to just the music, but if you want to visually see it, I mean,
I see. Okay,
there's
gotcha.
like
Okay.
a window. Yeah. But yeah, you can, it's on like Spotify to just listen to the
Okay.
songs. But basically at the end of the song, there's like this, literally it ends with him. It's like this like build up in the song. And then the last line I think is, Johnny, can you see me now? And he's like belting that. And it basically is like you hear like this loud train horn and like he's standing in the middle of the stage and there's like a spotlight and it like looks like a train light, you know, on him.
Yeah.
And then it just goes dark.
Okay.
And it all cuts out. So I again had no idea the story. So I didn't know that he died at all.
Right.
And he didn't seem like the type of character to me to then like do that. So I was like shocked. Like when I realized what was about to happen, I was like, no way. Like it's rough. It's so good though. So that was definitely like, I think that's the biggest difference. I have more. But another one was like just the character of Cherry, which again I think they just give her more depth in the musical. Also I think confirm, well, you tell me, but I think one of the extra scenes in the movie is, did you see the scene of her like seeing him at school and not talking to him?
No.
Okay, so that's a scene.
Okay.
Because basically in I think the regular one, basically the last time you see her is like she talks to him before the Rumble, right? And then you see like her kind of, or no, that's really the last time is right before the Rumble. So in the musical, she's like more involved in general, I think. Like she one, they have a whole song of the drive-in, like their night at the drive-in, and it's only them two. Johnny Cade's not there, so it feels a little bit more like romantic, I guess, like of a like relationship. And they have the song that's like, I could talk to you for hours. It's very cute. And it's like talking about, you know, how they don't like, it's the same vibe. Like they could never like talk to their groups of people like this. Like, so they kind of find like solace in that. And then Cherry, one, it's still the same thing. She kind of like stands up in the court and like speaks for them, but also she actually like stands up to the Socs, and you see that in the musical. Like there's a song where Bob's, all their friends are saying, you know, how like we have to get revenge, and Cherry literally says like, you were drinking, like you went out looking for a fight, like that kid was scared to death, like what did you expect him to do? And so she does like stand up to them and like really like, I don't know, face to face, like go against them.
Yeah.
And she in the musical is the one to bring Ponyboy Johnny Cade's clothes and the note that he wrote in the hospital. So she brings that to him when he's like mourning, and he doesn't really like, he's so upset that she like comes and tries to kind of reach out to him, but he just doesn't, like he's like, I don't want to talk to you sort of thing. But like she does show up in that way, and it just, I don't know, her depth was a little bit more in the musical. You could see that she was actually trying to, you know, be there and such.
I wish that, both in the book and the movie, that her character had been kind of fleshed out a little bit more. There in the theatrical version of the movie, like the court scene is not there at all. Like which I do think is, if you haven't read the book, kind of leaves you scratching your head a little bit of like, well, wasn't Ponyboy still involved in the murder of this kid? How is he just like walking free?
Wait, in
now,
the movie,
you know?
You're saying in the movie that
I saw, there was no court scene. Yeah.
Oh, okay. There is. I mean, there is in the one that I watched, but it was a little bit like you weren't sitting there in it. It was kind of like, but it did show them like in court and her like testifying and him sitting there, like, and them getting the like not guilty, whatever.
Gotcha.
Thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is interesting though, because in the musical, that was something I felt. They didn't show that at all. They kind of just like had, they had one, because literally that was my one critique of the musical where I was like, like exactly, like they did murder that kid though.
It's just like, you can't just be like, oh, you saved some kids, so you're good. Like,
and literally that's what I thought happened in the musical. Like it was like they have one song called Hoods Turned Heroes, fun song, but it's literally just like, well, they saved kids, so it's fine now.
The scales are balanced. 7 children equals 1 soch, so we're good.
Exactly.
There was a scene in the book that did not make it into at least the theatrical version, that was one of my favorite scenes, and I talked about it in the episode and the book episode, was where it's towards the end and Ponyboy, I think he's with 2-Bit, some Socs like pull up on them and he takes his like Pepsi bottle or whatever and he breaks it and he's ready to fight, and he like, because he's so tough now and he's gone through this whole experience and he has this confidence and self-assuredness that he didn't have before, it makes the Socs back off, but then he cleans up the glass. And it was like it's such a, I think it's just such a great visual way to show where his character has been. And I was like, how can you not put that in the movie?
Yeah.
Like it's so visual. It's right there.
Yeah, that's interesting. Something and kind of similar, but not. But yeah, because I don't think that was in the extended version either. But there was a scene where one of the Soc people comes and like talks to Ponyboy and almost is like apologizing in a way. Like, and I thought that was interesting too, because in the musical, the Socs definitely stay like evil, kind of, like not like under, like they're very like there's no middle ground there with them ever in the
negotiation
musical.
At all.
Yeah.
That scene is in the book when they're like at the Dairy Queen and the other Soc. It's also this is a complete tangent, but like I'm thinking of the Rumble. And so you've got the greasers and they got their like leather jackets and their cut off jean vests and stuff like that. And they look tough. They look like they can fight. And then just this busload of like Abercrombie and Fitch.
Literally preppy. Like, why do we even think that you could beat them? Like, I don't get that at all.
It's like 20 blonde dudes in khakis show up and they're like, we're going to fuck you up. And it's just...
It's so crazy.
And you know, maybe that is what it was like at the time. But I just think, you know, now in 2026, like
they're scared of the greasers.
Yeah,
like
the Ken dolls being the like intimidating bad guys that our heroes have to go up against in a fist fight is feels kind of ridiculous. You know, if they were guys who look like that can certainly be bad guys these days, and you know, certainly in more of a kind of a trust fund private equity sort of way, but just the idea of like we're gonna have this giant brawl between you know, the Hollister models and the you know, the greasers was a very funny visual to me.
100%. Yeah.
Evidently the filming of that Rumble scene was like pure chaos and people got legitimately hurt. Like Tom Cruise Tom Cruise had to like have an emergency dentist visit the next morning because he got some like teeth fucked up or something. And evidently the dentist, like, I mean, I don't know if this is still true because it was a long time ago, but like the dentist had a picture of him and Tom Cruise from that morning. And I'm just imagining like Tom Cruise is there, like, we got to get his teeth fixed ASAP so he can get back to shooting. And the dentist is like, hey, can we grab one real quick? Can we grab a picture?
I love that. And hey, valid, honestly.
Hey, you know what? You gotta get your content.
If you go on YouTube and watch anything of the musical, look up, they did a Tony performance a few years ago. And the Rumble scene in the musical is one of the best like choreographed lighting, sound things I've ever seen in theater in my entire life.
Okay.
And it did win Tony Awards. Like, I mean, it won Best Musical and a bunch of things, but I think it did win choreography. It is so cool. Like, there's rain on the stage. Obviously, the gravel that I've mentioned.
Obviously, the gravel, the famous gravel.
Yes, the famous gravel.
Which very, very much freaked me out.
Yep. But it is so good. Like, that scene is so good. I also do have, like, two small more, like, differences that aren't very in-depth. They're just, like, kind of ones where I was kind of like, why'd they change this?
Okay.
The book that Johnny Cade and Ponyboy are reading in the movie was Gone with the Wind. Yeah. But in the musical, it's Great Expectations.
Interesting. Okay.
And I just thought it was interesting that he kind of like, you know, talks about his life versus the Great Expectations book. And also there's a whole song called Great Expectations, which I do think like fits it really well. He's basically just talking about like, he has these great expectations for himself to like get out of this town, So it does like fit. And then the other difference was in the movie, and I'm curious what it is in the book. But it was North versus South. Like the greasers, I think, were South or North. I don't know. And the Socs were the other. But in the musical, it's East versus West. So
interesting.
just like a small difference. I was kind of like, does East and West rhyme with more stuff for the music? Or
well, it's interesting you say that in regards, like bringing up Gone with the Wind as well. Like, I'm not surprised that they changed the book for the musical, because like Gone with the Wind is fucking racist. Like,
I actually totally forgot that book, because I've never read it. So
yeah, I've never read it either, but I've seen the movie, and the movie is, because it's glorifying the thing that is Gone with the Wind is the antebellum South, and it's kind of this this elegy for the way of life that the Civil War destroyed, and that those days are now gone with the wind. And it's just like, yeah, it's fucking slavery is what you're like being romantic about and what you're romanticizing. And so it makes the South the good guys. And so that is interesting. I didn't necessarily clock that the North versus South of like socias versus but if S.E. Hinton is using, because the Gone with the Wind is the book that is mentioned in the book, so it's like the good guys in the book of Gone with the Wind is the South, and so it makes sense that they would be together. And so I don't blame the producers of the musical of just being like, yeah, we're gonna change that. We don't need to give any more spotlight to Margaret Mitchell's Gone with the Wind. So we're good. Sure. We're good.
Yeah, that's valid. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Also, I just want to point out, so they should. Why did they do Derry, Daryl, Dallas, Dally?
It's
most confusing thing ever. It took me almost the entire musical, and even sometimes in the movie, even though I knew. I was like, which one are we talking about right now?
I still, this is after reading the book, doing research for the book, recording an episode about the book, watching the movie, doing research for I still get confused when I'm like reading something and it's like, oh, this is what Derry said something. And it's just like, I can't believe that the publisher back in 1967 wasn't like, hey, SE, we love the book. We think it's great. We got one note. We got literally, one thing you need to change.
And that's even crazy, because literally in like my book that I'm writing, I have two characters right now that I've been writing them as Sarah and Stella, and they're best friends. And I'm like, gotta change that. One of them has gotta change. Just because it's two S names, too close. We gotta be switching it up.
Especially when you're reading quickly and you just see like it gets too confusing.
It's crazy.
Was there anything else on your chart?
I think that was like the one other thing that I think, and this is a difference that I thought was interesting, but I don't know if it was like this in the book or just the movie, but in the musical, I felt like they just dived deeper into Ponyboy's like grief afterwards, after everything. And I felt like in the movie, it kind of was just like, he just kind of had to like buck up and, like deal with it. Where in the musical, they really like allowed him time to like, be grieving, and like they showed like, which it was kind of showed in the movie too, but like Soda Pop and Daryl trying to like get him to come eat and like stuff like that. But I don't know, I did just feel like it allowed more depth, and again, maybe that's just because of the music that they're able to sing during it or whatever. But that was one thing that I felt like I missed a little bit in the movie, like that growth for Ponyboy afterwards.
100%. I feel the same way, because in the book there is space given for Ponyboy to have that grief, and like the movie wraps up very quickly. The book doesn't wrap up as quickly. Like there's kind of this whole season where Ponyboy is like, he's dealing with the grief of losing his friend Johnny and just the trauma of the situation that's happened. He's also still grieving his parents, who only died like less than a year before. And so, it's over the space of, I don't know, 6 or 7 pages or so, but it's basically just talking about how he gets more withdrawn, how he starts kind of losing interest in things, depression symptoms. And it's not, and he starts like failing his classes, which he up to this point has been a very good student, which is another thing that I feel like the movie didn't really show, was that he, like, despite being a greaser, he is also a very good student. But in the book,
the musical talked about that too. Like they would, like Daryl would be like, "You're the one that's like the smart one. You're the one." Like they talk about his books. Like Soda Pop at one point asks him like, "How many pages is that?" And he's like 544. And Soda Pop goes, 544 fucking pages. Like it was just like really, it's a cute scene. But
you bring up a good point in that, like, that is one of the plot points in the relationship with Ponyboy and his brothers is that Ponyboy has the shot to go to college and kind of get out of the scene and the like station that the other greasers are all kind of feel stuck in, and that's part of why Derry is like pushing him so hard, but anyway, in the book he starts kind of failing his classes, and it's not until one of his English teacher kind of pulls him aside and is like, what's going on with you? Like, are you okay? Like, what's happening? And he encourages him like, well, why don't you write about it? And then because of that encouragement, he starts writing, and then that becomes it's a circular thing where it's like the book ends with him writing the first lines of the book.
Right. And I really like that because I did feel that in the movie it felt really random when he started at the end, like writing the
book. It kind of comes out of nowhere.
And in the musical it doesn't feel as out of nowhere because throughout the entire musical he always has this like notebook, and he like in the very beginning of the musical the same thing. He starts with like, I've never been out of Tulsa before. Like it's like starts the same way it ends sort of vibe. But he had the journal, and like there was a whole plot point where like the Socias like took his journal and dumped it in the water, and like it was clear though that like Ponyboy was a writer this whole time. So but yeah, the movie I felt like I was like, oh, like I just was like so random at the end. I'm like, okay, now he's writing, like sure.
And it's also random where he just like whips out this Robert Frost poem.
Yes, yeah. I was like, how would we
like, okay, you just know poetry, whereas in the book like it feels a little more organic because you're like, oh, he's like kind of secretly a bit of a nerd, and he loves English, he loves reading as much. And so I also just felt like the delivery of like, that's a tough thing to do in a movie, is like have a character just kind of stop and quote a poem. Like that's a difficult thing to pull off, and I feel like they did not stick the landing on that one. Like
I would agree.
But yeah, I mean it's a beautiful poem, but it's like on the page it feels a little less heavy-handed. It's like when you go to film something like that, it's more often than not gonna turn out like gonna feel a little cheesy.
Yeah, I mean, even in the musical, I remember specifically being like, whoa, like, okay, now we're quoting poetry, but
it's a musical. Good. So like, it's, you have a little more license of just like, oh, if people are breaking into song, then,
we can also break out into poetry.
We can also break into poetry, which is like a song, but not. There was one piece of trivia that I found very charming about this movie is that the reason it got made, and specifically got made by this director, was there was a class at the Lone Star Elementary School in Fresno, California, who loved this book, and they like signed this kind of petition within their school, and the school librarian sent a letter to Francis Ford Coppola and was like, my students at this school love this book. They're learning this book. They love it. They wish there was a movie of it. They want you to make a movie of it. Will you make a movie of it? And so he read the book and was like, oh my God, I love this book. I'm going to make it. And he loved it so much that he also made another S.E. Hinton novel into a movie, like basically around the same time. Like I think they came out in the same year. It was called Rumblefish, starring Matt Dillon, who was Dally in
yes,
in this.
I have heard of Rumblefish. I literally just saw something about Rumblefish. Anyways, but yeah, that was that's so interesting. Something that because when I saw the musical, it was a matinee on like a Thursday or something, and so there was actually like a bunch of school groups there. Like, oh,
cool.
And I was like, how cool. Like they just read the book and are now watching the, you know what I don't know. Like it was like, and it was like fun. Luckily I wasn't sitting right next to a group of kids because I think would be a little annoying, but it was fun sitting far from them and getting to hear some of their reactions, like to certain things, was really cool. And like the way they would like cheer at the end for like their favorite like characters. Like, I don't know. It was like sweet. I was cool. Like, how cool to like live near New York, and instead of watching the movie, you get to go see the musical. Like that's so fun.
I was at some museums recently, and there was a bunch of school groups that came through, and I kind of had the simultaneous thought of like, oh, I'm so happy for them that they get to experience this and get to see this stuff as like part of their school. On the other hand, I don't want to be here right now because they are so loud. They are throwing rocks outside in the courtyard. This is awful. Much. I need to get out of here. So both things can be true.
Yes. And I will say the craziest part was after I did like stage door and got cool. all their signatures and stuff. And I felt like I was at a One Direction concert because the same way that they cast that movie with all these hunks, it's the same thing with the musical. Yeah. They're all like really attractive. And it was like, I mean, I've never been to a busier, and I was also there in the last week of what was the original Broadway cast. So there was a lot going on, and like it was, and I realized I felt old because the like group of people next to me were talking about something and they were like, oh, well, you have to be 17 to do that. And I said, you're not 17.
You're not even 17 yet? Oh my.
I was really like, oh no, I shouldn't be here. But it was so cool. Bunch of
children.
No, but okay, at least all the actors are my age. So I was like, really? But it was really like, I'll have to send you a video. There was like a group of literal schoolgirls across the street screaming as it was a One Direction concert. Like then one of the actors went over to them and it was like serious like mass hysteria, and the actors were like opening the windows and they were all like it was just like really intense in that way that I was like, wow, I loved it though. I was like, this is like, I mean, that's
a cool energy to be around and to witness. And
it was so fun. Man. Also, I have a random question that I'm curious about the book versus the musical and the movie. To kind of switch gears, but Soda Pop in the movie and the musical, I feel like they mentioned that he's like heartbroken and has this like girlfriend or ex-girlfriend. I think in the movie they mention it's a I think they also maybe mentioned that in the musical, but I'm curious if in the book it ever went into that at all, or if it was still just like this random thing.
So in the book, he has a girlfriend. I'm blanking right now. I can't remember if she was actually a Soch or not. I don't think she was in the book. But it is this subplot where Soda Pop has this girlfriend, and then she goes to like Florida, she goes on this trip, and then she sends a letter, and basically what she's revealing is to Soda Pop is, 1, I cheated on you. 2, I'm pregnant with the other guy's baby. 3, I'm in Florida to get an abortion. And 4, we're done. So so poor Soda Pop is like,
oh my God.
And like basically he gets that letter. I think he gets that letter while Ponyboy and Johnny are on the run from the law. And so that's the situation. Pop. Yeah, that Ponyboy like comes back to and is basically like, oh, why is Soda Pop like so down? And then we find that out. And then in the theatrical version, that's completely cut out a little bit. I think I remember reading in the extended version, there's some sort of mention of it.
I think they just like literally, I think it's like somebody mentions like it offhand. And it was kind of the same in the musical. Like Ponyboy will he just says something about like, do you miss her or something? And he just kind of like is like, he's still heartbroken, but that's it. Yeah. They don't like tell us anything else. I'm like, interesting. Okay.
Soda Pop is kind of a tragic character. Another one of the trivia things I read was that Rob Lowe during the filming of it asked S.E. Hinton, like, so what happens to Soda Pop after this? Like, where does he go in life? And she says, well, he gets drafted and he dies in Vietnam. And just like, oh,
no,
so sad. Yeah,
no, that is awful.
It's terrible. And I know,
why would she do that?
Right? She's sick.
She could have said anything.
She could have said anything.
He lives a long life and he's happy.
Yeah, he becomes the president of a chain of grocery stores,
literally
Wichita,
at least,
and but. No, wow. I know that she has written other books kind of about some of the same characters. So I don't know if that's canon or not. Like, I don't know if Soda Pop and his demise in Vietnam is mentioned in any of these other books or not, or if that was just something she told him in the moment. And,
right. Yeah.
I could see it being the sort of thing of like, maybe she's in had a long day, she's in a bad mood, this like annoying actor is like pestering her, and she's like,
he died. He dies.
He dies. Shut up. Stop bothering me. So I don't know.
Oh my God, that's tragic. Poor Soda Pop. Even in the musical, I loved him so much.
Yeah.
And the girls were really going crazy for the actor too. He like takes off his shirt in one of the songs.
Okay.
Like everybody was really loving that.
Yeah.
So
well,
I
it's
was
good. It's good casting, because that's how he's written in the book. As like he's written as this heartthrob that everyone is just like crazy for. Everyone loves. He's kind of the classic middle child, where he is always the peacemaker. He's always trying to get his older and younger brothers to like get along. Basically.
Yeah. I love it.
And they finally do. Yeah. It is. And it's like, like I said, I didn't love this movie. Didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would, but like the story itself is still so compelling. Right. And like, for me, especially the brother element of the story is like, that's like one of the cheat codes. Like any sort of brother sibling type story is like always going to get me in the feels.
Yeah, it's always sweet to me too. And it's interesting because like I'm an only child, so like but I also love that. I love any like found family or like sibling type dynamics. I just think it's so sweet. And I think it's because like I'm also like the type of person, even though I'm an only child, I see like my friends truly as like my family, and like my like I like am a very much like a like nurture over nature person. Like I find like relationships way more important than like literally my blood sometimes. Like if I I have some aunts that I don't speak to. I don't really like it. Just doesn't like I'm a very, and I think it comes with also like I grew up with like my stepdad who like is not blood, but like he's way more my dad than like my father. So I'm very like intense about that stuff. I think like I think relationships are like just so important. So I love like that dynamic a lot, because it's like literally they would die for each other, which like I just love.
Yeah. And in a way, one of them does. Poor Johnny. Poor Johnny.
Gosh, I need you to listen to the songs and like watch the Rumble, and I need you to text me and tell me what you thought, because it's so good. It's coming to LA in like August also, by the way. Yes.
Oh, let's go.
Okay, round 3 episode.
Round 3.
We gotta go see it.
Specifically an Outsiders podcast now. Yes. This is the only thing that we're going to be doing. Exactly. But Kaylin, thank you so much. Any final thoughts on on the Outsiders?
I love it. I think it's sweet. I really do want to read the book. I think I have to now. I've got to finish the trifecta, but I think it's just a sweet story. I think it's amazing that she was so young when she wrote it.
Crazy.
It's insane. I love it. I think everyone should read the book, watch the movie, and also watch the musical if you're able.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Anything you want to plug before we sign off?
Ooh, sure. Just follow my Instagram, Kaylin Hertz. I also have a Bookstagram that I'm trying to be a little more active on, Kaylin.reads. But yeah, just keep up with me. I'm writing a book. So if you're into like dark romance, keep up with me. It's not like The Outsiders. It's not at all. But it is fun. And there is murder. So there's a similarity.
So in a way, it's a little bit like, in a way. All right. Well, Kaylin, thank you so much. And to everyone watching and listening, thank you for watching and listening. And as always, keep reading.